Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Frank here. We're going to pick up on the second half of the video servicing the aftercoolers for my boat's engines. If you haven't seen episode 1, suggest maybe you go back and look at that. It'll bring you up to date for where we are. We've got the aftercooler housings for the port and starboard engines here. They're all cleaned. The heads have been cleaned, new zincs installed, and we're getting ready to reinstall the tube bundles, or the cores. So these are the cores. Seawater flows through the tubes, air blows across the core and through the core, and the purpose of the aftercooler is to take the hot air, compressed air coming from the turbo and cooling it down so that you can increase the air charge in the cylinders, get more horsepower, burn more fuel, get more horsepower. Okay, so we're going to start on the reassembly now. We've got a kit from Seaboard Marine, and this actually has gaskets for the heat exchanger, which need to do an inspection on that, and got the two sets of O-rings, the lubricant, which is Alco Metalube, which we'll apply during installation, and here additional zincs we've already installed, so these are extras. We've already got the zincs installed, so we won't need these. All right. So I'm going to set the camera up in a tripod, and we'll get started putting these back together. Once we got them back together, we're going to take them down to the boat and reinstall them. All right. The next step is cleaning the cores. So we're going to start. I don't have a bucket tall enough to come all the way up. Recommended regimen is some simple green, All right, while they're soaking in there, and then after they soak a while, we'll flip them over. And meanwhile, I'm going to get a rod. See if I can get a rod the right size. All right, so we'll methodically go down each tube. Okay, I decided it was better to bring these outside. All right, we'll let them sit for a little bit. Come here. Here's my Brew Brew. How you doing, huh? Being a good boy? Where's your Butchie? Where's your brother, huh? Where's your brother? Is he outside making trouble? We don't care, Daddy. We don't care. As long as he's not here getting all this attention. If you've been watching the channel, you know this is Brutus, or Brew Brew, as we call him. One of my 2 German Shepherds. It's a good boy. Good boy. Okay, back to work. All right, I've got the cores out here on a drop cloth. Been soaking in the simple green for a while. Now I'm going to blow the moisture out of them. On these aftercoolers, there's always one side which is dirtier than the other, because the air from the turbocharger, you know, is going to have a little bit of dust and stuff in it coming from the engine room. And so, I mean, for example, you can see this side is much cleaner than this side. That's the port 1. This side is got to be the intake. This side's cleaner. This is the discharge. All right, the recommendation is carb cleaner, choke cleaner, and plenty of it. That one is a dirtier one, so this one is much cleaner. So I'm spraying the cleaner down through the fins to clean out the interior of the tube bundle. You can't scrub it with anything because you'll bend the fins, potentially. That's much cleaner than it was. All right, the They actually recommend against acid cleaning these, as you might with a heat exchanger, or I guess it's because the fins are so thin. Anyway, what's recommended is soaking in a detergent, Simple Green, or just using, I mean, you wouldn't have to do that if you rotted them out and then used the carb cleaner to clean all the oil off of them, because that's what's on them, is a little bit of soot and oil and dirt. So I kind of did both. Clean them in detergent to get most of the grease out of them, and then clean them with the carb cleaner to get the oil and out of the fins. Alright, I'm going to take them back inside. We're going to let them sit overnight and dry before we reassemble. So we'll come back tomorrow for reassembly and installation back on the boat. Well, I figure I would do one more thing before I quit for today, and that is replace the zincs. So I just took the old zinc out. I got one more after this one to do. I've already replaced the zincs in 2 of them. Decided to go ahead and show this. I'm just using a tap to clean out the threads. You want these zincs to make good electrical contact, and that's the purpose of them. They're sacrificial zincs. So you want the zinc to corrode before the housing corrodes. Alright, so new zinc, and it's a half inch tapered pipe thread, 7/8 inch hex. And you don't put anything would interfere with the electrical connection. That's the old zinc. I mean, it's still mostly there, but it broke off. And you don't want them rattling around inside the housing. Though that happens from time to time. They corrode and then separate from the brass nut, and they just sit in that plenum. Sometimes I'm sure with fluid flow they bounce around some. I've never seen them damage the ends of the tubes in the tube sheet. I've seen that in industrial. Seen that in nuclear power plant, where something got inside the heat exchanger and rattled around, damaged a bunch of the tube ends, actually bent some of them partway closed. It was a big repair job. Of course, that situation had nothing to do with being a nuclear plant. It just happened to be a industrial facility with heat exchangers. I think that these zincs and I got a whole box of them. They don't seem to go in as far as the original zincs, but they're the proper part. Got 2 zincs in each aftercooler, 1 in each heat exchanger, and 1 in the generator heat exchanger. Okay, so that's the last end cap. Why do I have to get all this stuff out? And I think I'm going to take that over to the parts washer and rinse these all out. I'll just do that off camera. All right, now we'll really be back tomorrow. All right, I've got the first aftercooler here, clamped in the vise. All right, so this grease, we coat the inside lip here. With a good coat. You have about an inch that you need to cover. Do the same thing at the other side, the other end. All right, so there's a notch right here, and there's an arrow on the core, so they go together. Okay. This is some sticky grease. The O-ring. All right, so this is the top port, and I've got it's like 2 match marks there. cleaned all the surfaces, you know, with sandpaper, both this surface and the inside surfaces, so get a good fit. Almost 10 millimeter. Let's see. All right, here's the metric. Alright, so that's 1.5. Alright, so I need to go to the hardware store and see if I can get a slightly longer bolt and maybe a tap. We can tap the hole a little deeper. Maybe you get a bottom, make it a bottom tap. Tap the hole a little deeper, get a longer bolt. See if that works. All right, I'll come back when I've got something else to work with. Look who came in to see me. This is my butchie boy. And here's my Brutus. Yeah. Good puppies. Yeah. Come here, butchie. You're a good boy. You know that? You're a good boy too. Yeah, good puppies. That's my Brew, and this is my butchie. Good boys. All right. Alright, so I just got back from the hardware store. Fortunately, we have a nice Ace hardware here. So what I did is I got the next longer bolt. This is a M10 1.5 pitch. And then in the event that I can't, and I got a tap. I have a metric tap set, but it's kind of a cheap one. So I went ahead and bought a good tap. I'm going to see if I can tap the threads a little deeper. Maybe if I can catch 6 or 8 threads. It's not a high pressure application or anything. Just need enough to compress the O-ring on that aftercooler on the core. So we'll try that. We're going to first clean the threads out, run this in, see how far it goes in, and go from there. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is clean the bolt hole out. Alright, so we get the longer bolt. See what it will do. Actually, it feels like it's engaging those threads. I am going to go ahead and grind off a little bit off this tap so that I can get it deeper in and cut a couple more threads. believe that went in a couple more turns. Let's see. Yeah, I mean it clearly cut some more thread. All right. So the attempt to add additional threads to this just did not work out. So the next thing is to just drill and tap for the next larger size. I mean, I could helicoil it, but that would be the same thing. So this is going to be for .5/16. Got a 5/16 bolt. Even though it's not metric like everything else, these are M10 1.5. I didn't want to go to an M12 because it's so much larger. I figured I'll paint it a different color so that the bolt head and the cover have the same color spot, so that people will know. If it's not me next time, whoever takes it apart will know it needs to go back in there. Of course, the other bolts would just spin easily in there, and this bolt, this 7/16 bolt, wouldn't fit in any other holes. So it's kind of the way it would be. All right, so let's try. I've drilled it out to 3/8, which is the drill size for the 7/16 14 threads per inch tap. And I'm lucky this is a fairly forgiving situation. In terms of, accuracy and that sort of thing. This should be 5/8 maybe. All right, since this is inch, we'll go to inches. I've got 0.55, 0.55 protrusion, and the thickness of this is 0.6. So definitely have enough bolt going in to compress the head against this. All right, let's put this head back on. I've had it on and off so many times here. I just finished torquing these bolts. So I finished the repair off camera. All I did was, I mean, you saw me drill and tap the housing for the 7/16 bolt. I just took the cap over the mill and drilled 7/16 inch clearance hole in the cap, and then put the bolt in, tightened them all down, got good grease squeeze out all the way around, tightened up fine. So that's a good repair. I'm glad I went ahead and did the retapped the threads to a larger size. Unfortunately, I did switch from metric. All the other screws are metric. This one is SAE, but my alternative was going to a much larger size, which, you know, I didn't feel like the housing would accommodate an M12 bolt, and it would be a different size anyway. So since it's only touched once every 5 years, I'll paint this a different color when when we're done here. I did finish a pressure test on the first cooler. We're going to go over and hook this one up and do a pressure test on this one as well. Have no reason to suspect that it won't pass. The cores are relatively new, so and they've been maintained, so I think we're fine. We'll go hook this up and put some air pressure to it. Which is a good boy. Would you and Brutus like a treat? Huh? Would you like a treat? Let's go get a treat. Come on. Let's go get a treat. Where's Brew Brew? There's Brew Brew. You want a treat? I think I might have for Butchie. There's one for Brutus. They chow down on those. Alright, so this is Brutus. Good boy. Which is a little slower, though, even though he has more experience eating. He's got, I don't know, 10 pounds on Brutus. So he clearly has more experience eating. But he's a little slower. He's a little slower. Brutus is ravenous. Alright, so these are the fittings that are used for the pressure test. This has a Schrader valve and a relief valve and just some PVC fittings and hose. And get this on one side here. Get you in close on the gauge there. Alright, we'll apply a little air pressure here. Alright, that's over 20 pounds. Let that sit for a second here, check for leaks. All right, I don't see the gauge moving at all. I sprayed soapy water on the hose connections here where I had some minor leaks on the other cooler. Oh, okay. So look, I got bubbles. I got bubbles in two places. This zinc and then over here on this other hose. All right, let me see if I can tighten the hose a little bit more. So based on this discoloration here, and this is the bottom of the starboard aftercooler, I'm going to say there was a little bit of seawater coming out of here because this is pretty tight and is still leaking just a little bit. You can't put Teflon thread on, Teflon tape on here because it insulates the zinc from the housing, and you have to have electrical contact between the two. So you really need a conductive grease. I have some electrically conductive grease, Penetrox, I think it's called, Penetrol. So then you pull this out and put some Penetrol on it, which is used for making up electrical connections in circuit panel boxes. So, all right, let's do that. Let me release the pressure here with the relief valve. All right, so this is electrical joint compound used in circuit panels and is a conductive. Well, that didn't work. There we go. All right, back up to about, all right, I'm back up to about 20 psi. right, it looks like that stopped the leak. Be careful I don't want to put it in too tight, because I mean it's tapered thread, so there's a risk you could split this housing if you're not careful. So that looks good at this point. All right, I think it's holding pressure. So I think that's another successful pressure test. Okay. She's holding pressure. I don't see any more leaks. So I think we're good to go on here. I'm going to release the pressure. About 25 psi. So all right, I think that's the end of the rebuild on these two aftercoolers. I'll pull the test connections off the second cooler, and we'll reconvene down on the boat and reinstall them. I just finished putting a coat of paint on the aftercoolers, so they're ready. And of course I opened the garage doors, and here is my dog interested in going outside. Come here, Butchie. You can't go outside. They're pretty good. They don't try to escape too often, but I one time left I thought I was mowing the grass, and I went through a gate and I closed it behind me, and it semi-latched, and I finished cutting the grass. You know, a half hour, 45 minutes later, I came back, and the gate was open, the dogs were gone. Panic set in. I mean, we're in a very rural area here, on a river, and so we were all over the neighborhood for a couple hours, calling for them, driving up and down, talking to people. Finally, I got in my boat, my runabout. I have a 16-foot outboard runabout, and just on the chance that when they get out, they tend to go down to the water. So I said, well, maybe they're along the shoreline someplace. So I get in my boat and run around looking all along the shoreline, and I can't believe it. I'm about up around the end of this peninsula and down through in another cove. I'm like 2 miles away by water, and I'm going, and here I see two black dogs sitting on a dock looking at me, and it's the boys. So I pull up to the dock, grabbed them by the collar, dragged them into the boat. They'd never been in a boat before. They panicked a little bit, but I held on to them, and we got home. Brew said, I never went for a boat ride before, and it was very exciting. We went really fast, and I got them home. I don't know how they got on. That dock was on the other side of the water. They didn't swim across. They weren't soaked. I mean, they were wet, but I think there was a cove, so they must have gone all the way around the cove. This is like, had to have been, a couple, 3-4 miles. So anyway, happy ending, got them back, but very careful about locking the gate. I do have to open the garage doors here when I paint, so I keep a close eye on them. They don't bolt for the door to try to get out. They know they're not supposed to go anywhere, so they walk up to the door and look out. They won't run away if I'm here. Anyway, so I did get new paint on both the aftercoolers. So they're going to sit here and dry. Weather's kind of cold and damp this morning. Well, I guess it's afternoon now. What is it? It's 2:30. So we'll call that a wrap on this video. I'm not going to film or record the reinstallation since it's the dogs are running around here. It's the inverse of the removal, so nothing really more to see there. It's a little bit of a hassle getting all the bolt holes lined up, but it's not that bad. So I'm gonna I'll take care of that once the weather clears up a little bit. Got a couple other chores to do on the boat for the commissioning this spring. This is probably the most labor intensive. So if you got any questions, put them down below or comments. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I do want to it occurred to me that when we were pressure testing the aftercooler, I was fixing leaks, with the zinc and the hose clamp, and of course that's not the purpose of the test. The purpose of the test is to make sure the core doesn't leak, and I didn't mention that. It occurred to me that I probably should have. So the fact that it holds pressure, you got to fix the leaks on the exterior so that any reduction in pressure can be attributed to the core itself. It's the core that you don't want leaking. Another test method is to put it between two pieces of polyethylene plastic, for example, clamp it together and apply air to the core itself. But it's just as easy to put, for me, it's just as easy to put it inside the housing and pressure test it there and watch for a pressure drop. If you don't have a pressure drop and you don't have any exterior leaks, then you know that the core is not leaking. You don't want salt water. If there's a leak in the core, you could get salt water into your intake air and take it into the engine. And obviously that's what you're trying to avoid. So, all right, we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.